Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm here with a brand new story. And before we begin, okay, let's get into the story. Leo had always been curious. At 12 years old, his small room looked more like a workshop than a bedroom. Wires, gears, springs, and half-built contraptions lay scattered across every surface. His desk was covered with circuit boards, tiny motors, and half-finished sketches. And although his room often looked messy, everything in it had a purpose. Leo liked taking things apart and figuring out how they worked. And if he didn't have what he needed, he simply made it himself. Most of the time, his inventions were useful, but some were a bit silly. Take his shoe-tying machine, for instance. It didn't work very well. One rainy afternoon, Leo decided to build something new. He didn't know what it would become, only that he wanted it to move, maybe crawl like a spider or hop like a grasshopper. For hours, he worked by the soft hum of his desk lamp. His fingers moved quickly, connecting tiny motors and bending pieces of wire into shape. Outside, rain tapped gently against the window, but Leo barely noticed. Time passed quickly because he was having too much fun. Finally, he stepped back to admire his work. It was a strange creation. A small, odd-looking creature with 4 spindly legs and a round metal body. Leo thought it looked kind of cute. He named it Juno, though he wasn't sure why. Then he connected the final wire and flicked the switch. At first, nothing happened. Leo frowned. Something wasn't right. Then he heard a faint worry sound and saw Juno twitch. But it still didn't move. He sighed. Maybe it wouldn't work. But just to be sure, he tried again. Suddenly, Juno shot up, bumping its head on the ceiling. Before Leo could react, it slammed back down onto his desk. Slowly, it began to wobble, then finally stand still. But it was clear that something had changed. Carefully, Leo approached his creation. He was about to touch it when suddenly it rose again, not up, but forward, floating slowly off the desk. Leo gasped. He stepped back, unsure what to do. At first, it moved erratically, drifting up and down, left and right. But gradually, it began to steady itself, hovering smoothly in the middle of the room. Heart pounding, Leo tested it carefully. To his amazement, Juno floated steadily, its 4 legs dangling uselessly below. Then it began to turn, making a complete circle around his desk. Then it headed toward the window, where it slowed to a stop, gazing out at the rain-streaked glass. For a moment, Leo couldn't believe what he was seeing. Had he really built a floating robot? It almost seemed like a dream. Yet, there it was, real and tangible, dancing in the soft light of his desk lamp. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes it bumped into books or crashed when the battery ran out. But it was real, and that was all that mattered. "How did you do it?" she asked. Leo hesitated. "I don't really know. It just happened." Mia's smile didn't fade. "That's the best part, Leo. You made something new, by accident. It wasn't a graceful invention, but it was an invention nonetheless. And that's something to celebrate." Soon, everyone at school knew about Leo's floating robot. Some kids were amazed. Others teased him, calling it a flying toy. At first, Leo felt embarrassed. He worried that people thought he was silly for making something that didn't really do anything. But Mia reminded him that every invention starts with trying, failing, and trying again. She told him to keep working on Juno, to make it better and more amazing than ever. Encouraged by Mia's enthusiasm, Leo kept working on his invention. First, he added a way for Juno to recharge its batteries without crashing. Then, he gave it tiny sensors, so it could avoid books and other objects. He also painted its body blue and silver, making it look sleek and stylish. Slowly, it began to look less like a jumble of parts and more like a creature with a personality. One weekend, Leo's father, who worked at a local electronics company, saw Juno floating around the living room. He raised an eyebrow, then smiled. "You really built that yourself?" "Mostly by accident," Leo admitted. His father nodded. "Sometimes, accidents show us something no plan ever could." Later that night, Leo sat on his bed, watching Juno float quietly nearby. He thought about what Mia and his father had said. He realized the real magic was unjust in what Juno could do. It was in daring to make something, even if it failed. In the months that followed, Leo kept building. Some projects worked, most didn't. But each failure taught him something new. He learned that success wasn't the opposite of failure, but its partner. Without failure, there would be no success. And sometimes, failure led to something even better. One day, Leo was working on a new invention when he accidentally knocked over his desk lamp. Just as it hit the floor, he saw a flash of lightning outside. Quickly, he reached for the cord and pulled it out of the socket. When he turned back, he saw something amazing. The desk lamp hovered above the table, suspended in midair by an invisible force. Startled, Leo stepped back, knocking over a bucket of screws. They clattered to the floor, but he didn't notice. He was staring at the desk lamp, wondering how it was floating. Then he remembered the storm outside and realized the answer: static electricity. He'd accidentally turned his lamp into a flying machine. Excited, he started experimenting. He attached weight to the cord, making the lamp rise higher and lower. He even managed to make it spin in circles. Then he had an idea. He unhooked the lampshade and attached a small motor, giving the lamp propellers. When he turned it on, the motor whirred, pushing the lamp forward. In a moment, it was floating across the room, looking like a strange flying saucer. Carefully, Leo guided the lamp, enjoying the feeling of control. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes the lamp flew too high or spun out of control, but it was real. And as Leo watched it hover, turn, and drift, he knew he'd made something truly special. From that day on, Leo's creations took on a new direction. He began inventing all sorts of flying machines, from helicopters to airplanes. And although some were more successful than others, they all taught him something important. That mistakes happen to all of us, but it's up to us to decide what to do next. Sometimes a mistake can lead to something wonderful. You just have to be willing to embrace the unknown and dare to try something new. When Leo was young, his parents worried that he was too curious, too eager to take things apart and put them back together. But as they watched him work on his inventions, they realized that their son wasn't just tinkering. He was learning, growing, and becoming someone special. One day, his mother found him sitting on his bed, surrounded by tools and wires. She sat down beside him and asked, "What are you making, Leo?" He looked up, his eyes shining with excitement. "I don't know yet," he said, "but I think it'll be amazing." His mother smiled. She knew one thing for sure. Leo wasn't just a boy who made flying lamps and floating robots. He was a dreamer, an explorer, and an inventor. And she couldn't wait to see what he created next. So what will Leo invent next? Who knows? But one thing is for sure. His adventures are just beginning.